computer. Hi, Lissa. It's Jana, and I'm here with Johanna Derbolowsky. I have to keep saying it so I can let it roll off my tongue. Derbolowsky. I love it. And we're going to get ready to start. So I'm going to count us in, and we're going to start recording. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with Johanna Derbolowsky. Johanna is a best-selling author of the book Transformation Promise and the workbook, 28 Days to Love, Joy, and Prosperity. She has helped clients worldwide with life's major changes and transformations, from identifying long past incidents that can be the source of current depression, business or health issues, to dealing with career changes, finding sustaining, fulfilling relationships, to the truly ultimate transformation at the end of life. Johanna is a developer of the quantum heartfelt experience. She is a recognized metaphysical teacher, spiritual counselor, and transformation coach. Johanna also lectures and conducts workshops in the US and Europe and has a private practice in Southern California, serving her clients from around the world. She works primarily over the phone, and I can tell you she's awesome because I worked with her and she was incredible. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Johanna. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I am honored to be here.
I love your intro because you're like awesome. You're out in a lot of places doing a lot of incredible work. And I mentioned earlier that I had a session with you, and it was wow. I can't even describe it. It was incredible. So thank you for that session. It really was amazing. One of the things we ask our clients when they come here is to share a story of hope, because I feel like every story we share touches somebody out in the world and really does create that incredible ripple effect of change. So do you want to share a story of hope with us today?
Yeah, and I thought about that actually because you warned me of that. I don't have one particular story of hope because I think it's really nice when you have that you got cured from some horrible illness, or you had an accident, miraculously survived or so. But I think most of us, it's not one specific thing that happens where the aha moment happens, but it's a lot of little waves that hit the shore. And I think my story of hope will be that I know it's always going to change. So if things are really bad, and I've had, tons of experiences because for some reason I like to push myself to the edge. And then, if you're completely stuck, it's not going to stay that way. So I think the biggest hope in my life is that when I'm really miserable, down, stuck, or feel like this can't go on, I know that transformation is going to happen. It is a promise. And that's why I named the book that way, because the hope is that things are not going to stay the same when you're really in a terrible situation. And for me, having put myself into devastating situation continuously, it taught me how to have faith and just move on and know that I really am not in charge of my life. I think the spirit is in charge of it. You have an opportunity to respond to whatever situation you're stuck in.
By the way, I love your story of hope because everyone can relate to this. Nothing really does stay the same. Like, you can't be in the health forever, have the best health. You can't have happiness always. You have to have, it's a balance of having bad days, good days, incredible moments, not so incredible moments, and understanding that change is what really creates the magic in our lives.
Yeah, and for me, when I was young, I just tried to push the financial envelope, always to never really knowing, do I have enough money to survive to the next month, or just things. When my first child was born, my husband just lost his job and I just didn't have a job, and I couldn't do my film business career with a newborn baby. So I've always put myself in the situation where it's like, wow, okay, there's no way I can figure out a way out of this. But by having that faith and trust that something will show up, something always did show up. And, I'm still here, so.
Well, I met you through my daughter, Dr. D, and she spoke so highly of you. I couldn't wait to meet you. And one of the things she kept talking about was something you had said to her is what is it like, what is your health's purpose? Like if you're ill, what is that serving you? How is that illness serving you, and why are you not able to let it go or move past it? Or even like I always tell people that I did not grow my stomach back. It's still gone, but I have found a way to thrive in my diagnosis and to have this beautiful life with it not being here anymore. And so what does that mean to you when you told her that? Like I thought it was fascinating.
Well, actually, my father told me a long time ago, well, just don't try to help people unless they ask you, number one, because it'll always backfire, which, I ignored and I found out the hard way.
It backfired.
But I think it really sunk in one day when I had a client who, and I was still under supervision of my teacher at the time. And halfway through, he yelled at me and he said, "You're looking at your client, but you're looking at a part that they can't see from where they're at. So it's not useful for them." And that was really important for me to understand, that it doesn't matter if I can see, the glorious spirit of you. If you can't see it, then it's only going to make you feel bad at that moment. So when people say, I want to change this, or I want to, have better health, or I don't want to struggle financially, or the one that recently came up a lot in my offices, the relationship. Because with the COVID, a lot of people stay together that weren't necessarily going to stay together because they're afraid to be alone. And so it's very hard for young people because you can't go out and meet people. And well, I find it really challenging, especially for younger people. And so, but it still comes down to the bottom. Why are you in this relationship, or what are you getting out? And so the more frustrated you get, the more you complain. And, we've all complained about our partners plenty, so.
A lot, daily.
But then your focus is on the complaining, and that becomes sort of your social life. And when I ask my clients that have health issues or other issues, and I say, what is going to happen if you don't feel that way? And they're completely lost. It's like you're pulling the rug out under them, because their whole life, or our life, revolves around our problems. So when you really think about what happens if I don't have the problem, you're like, wow, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Because what do I talk to my friends about? Or, am I still going to have friends? Because you also find the friends that commiserate with you on that same level. And we all do that. And then somebody comes along and says like, oh, well, I'd really love to talk to you, but I don't want to hear about that relationship anymore.
That's true. That happens all the time.
Yeah. And then that's the moment when you go like, oh, this is really what I have been all about, this problem. And then comes the next step. How do I get out of it? So that's, when you're totally aware and you're aware of what all goes into the problem, then, look, I'm going to go back to the health issue. If you needed a caretaker and your partner is your caretaker, those are roles. Those are really definite roles. You are the person that needs the caretaking, and the other person is the caretaker. If you don't need the caretaking anymore, at that moment, the entire relationship falls apart. And it can come together in something better, of course. But it can also be that the other person now feels useless and doesn't have anything in common with you anymore. So there is that moment that you don't know, if you change something, you don't know with the butterfly effect what all is going to be affected by it.
Johanna, that is so true, because like there's a lot of women around my age whose they're doing the empty nest, right? So their kids have gone off to college and they were caretakers to their children for years, and that was their purpose. And now they're gone. So their relationships with their spouses are changing. Everything's changing for them. And they're not quite sure how to fit into that role anymore, who they are. And they're complaining all the time. And I remember thinking as a mom when my kids were little, I cannot wait until you're all out. And then that day comes and they're all out. And you're like, what do I do now? Like, I really didn't want this all out. But I know that they're doing the same thing where their roles change, their relationships with their spouses are changing. And sometimes for the better, like they find, oh, this is a perfect time for us to travel together and do this together. And the others are changing, maybe not for the better.
Yeah, and maybe that's just the person that helped you raise the kids. And now you go your separate ways because your goals are separate. And no judgments about either one. I don't think, we all have to have the same decision at that point.
I agree. You're in the driver's seat of your destiny, right? You're in the driver's seat of how you choose to respond to things, make things happen. If you are staying in a relationship, you chose to be in there, right? It's not because you still have little kids. It's not because you can change the person that's causing you to want to be out of a relationship. You stay in that relationship because you chose to at the end of the day. For whatever reason, you chose to be there.
Yeah, and when you're done with something completely done and there's no resentments or so, then it's very easy to go your own way too. So when you're not stuck in that grid anymore. But I think that mostly it's good to get to know yourself. Like, be honest about that. Know where you are just complaining and lying to yourself all day. And I know, we've all probably been there. Maybe some people haven't, but I haven't met them yet.
So I like to visit that place. I do complain and I try to catch myself and stop, but I say I visit it. I don't live in it. So I will throw out a complaint once in a while, sometimes more in one day than another, but I don't live in that space. I immediately try to focus on what can I do to change this if I'm not happy, and not change that person, change myself, right? Because we cannot, like you said, you can't fix other people. You can only really fix yourself. So what's causing me to be irritated by this? What's causing me to not like this? And how can I change it? And if that means removing myself from that situation, then that's what I do.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to always observe yourself. And then, it's okay if we fall, or, we don't have to beat ourselves up if we just do something that we normally would not want to do. But we'll just move on, just let it go and go to the next thing. But the more you know yourself, the more you understand all the areas where you're caught in your life. So that self-knowledge is really good. And what I tell a lot of my clients is, especially the younger ones, if they complain about their relationship or where they want to be, and I say, well, if your best friend was in that situation, what would you tell them? Because who wants to listen to somebody else's advice? Somebody else's advice is always good because we can reject it.
Yep.
Especially if it hits home, then we can go right away and say like, no. But if we give the advice ourselves, then we hear it. So to move the problems or the issues outside of yourself is a good little tool to have. Just think of, somebody else is going through the exact same thing. What would I tell them?
Well, I have been dying to talk to you because I had a session with you, and I want people to, I know it's very hard to describe it, which is why you said, I've got to show you. And it was, I can't even describe it. It was transformational. I kept saying, is this supposed to happen? And the great thing is I went into this session expecting nothing because I wasn't quite sure, but receiving so much, I think, because I was really expecting nothing when I went in there, and I just relaxed into it. But it was unusual. I don't even know how to, and I'm saying unusual in the best way. I'm telling you, it was amazing. And I kept writing her back saying, is this normal? Like, what is going on? Like, it was, first of all, it was exhausting. I felt physically and mentally exhausted. And all I did was lay there. And it took me a couple days of like, I was having to hydrate myself, and I felt, I don't know how to explain how I felt because it was so unusual, but it was the most amazing thing I have ever done. So I want to thank you for that. But what is it? What did you do to me?
Well, I can answer that easily. Nothing.
You did something.
I did nothing. I just followed whatever showed up. So I don't, that's why I can't really tell you what's going to show up in that moment, because I don't know. So I just follow along with whatever shows up, maybe what I hear or what I see. And I believe that we're all connected on all levels, and we're all the same, divine source energy. So whatever needs to be dealt with at that moment will show up.
So Johanna, I've only gotten into holistic anything in the last 10 years because I was raised very pharmaceutical, very science-based. I'm not saying that holistic medicine isn't science-based, but you know what I mean by today's science-based. And so if somebody were to say, I can do this for you over the phone, I would have probably one of the reasons too, part of me shows up when someone does that and says, I have no expectations, right? And I end up experiencing way more than if I had set an expectation, knowing like what this should be like. But it was like so transformational for me. And I still don't understand, like, is it moving energy? Is it, and for those of you who think it can't be done, my daughter, bless her heart, I just love her, and she has the best analogies. She says, if you are praying for somebody, for those of you who are religious and pray, and you're praying for somebody in another space, right? They're on another continent, and they say, ask for prayers for my child, and you're putting these heartfelt prayers out into the world. That energy goes back to them. It's moving things and changing things. And so she was kind of explaining to me how people can do these incredible things over the phone. So for those of you who think, I can't get help at home during COVID, I can't work with this incredible person on another part of the planet because they're so far, it really works.
Well, I think it works deeper because when we are in front of a person, our judgments come up immediately. Like, oh, that's a weird nose, or really, those glasses are not really her type, or whatever, but you can't, it's almost like we can't stop ourselves judging. But when you don't see the person, then you have to completely trust that divine energy to come through and to say the right thing.
I agree with that.
Not knowing anything, not knowing anything about you made sure that I was not really involved as a person. So my judgments or my ideas about you were not part of the session. So instead of having to sit there and then you remove everything and get yourself clear, you kind of, and I think it's that way on both ends, because if you don't know the other person, you don't see like, oh, it's just a person, and today she has acne or whatever, and how can she possibly be helping me? I mean, I know I definitely have gone to the doctor and said like, oh my God, they don't look healthy. Am I in the right place?
Me too. Or I've gotten on a plane and the pilot looks too young and I don't think they're experienced enough. Or they look too old and I'm like, they're too experienced. When are they retiring? And so absolutely, we all do make those judgments. And I say all the time on the podcast, on everything I'm writing, that is my worst fault, is that I will instantly judge someone, and I try to stop my brain from doing that because it's just our like knee reflex that we do see people and we'll say, oh, what made them wear that today? Like, it's just weird how we do it, not even realizing it's a judgmental space and we do it. So I literally try to catch myself and say, what's going on? Who cares? Who cares what they're wearing today? Who cares what color their hair is or that they've shaved the side off? Who cares? They're a beautiful soul and I need to focus in on that.
Yeah, so, I think a good way that I've learned from teachers is to just look at us as the ocean. Everybody is a little ripple or a wave or something, and it comes and goes on the top of the ocean. But in essence, we are all just the ocean. And once the wave, dissolves back into the ocean, it doesn't know, what you're wearing today or any of those things.
That's
So if you come from that space, and that's why I kind of named my thing the quantum heart field experience, because it's the experience of that unified field. And if you can get to that unified field at that moment, everything is okay, always, no
that is a
matter who you
beautiful
are.
analogy for it, for sure. Like we're like every single snowflake is different, and yet every single snowflake is beautiful, and you really can't tell them apart because they're all so beautiful. So I think that that's perfect. We're all different, and yet we're all so beautiful.
Yeah, and they're all the same chemical combination, and they all dissolve again to be the same elements that they were to start with. So in essence, we're just that original element. So you can access that.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of clients that you work with. So, like, what do you specialize in? What kind of clients are like the perfect clients for you?
You know, it's a good question because I ask myself that all the time, and I tend to always be wrong or proven wrong right afterwards. I think the person that's seeking, that really wants to seek to find what they haven't been able to find on themselves on their own. When I wrote the book, I wrote it sort of for the middle-aged seeker, the person that has read The Secret and all the other books and still is struggling. But after I published it, it was the young people that are going off to college that were the most responsive to it. And I'd never even thought of them as being the people that would read that. So it was very surprising to me. I mean, I had one person send me a letter afterwards and said, well, I just flew to my college and I read your book on the plane, and now I just changed my major and everything.
Wow.
So it was very, unexpected for me. So who's my ideal client? Somebody that knows that there is something else, that there is a spirit underneath that they want to get closer to. Or for me, it's the person that is sort of pushed against the wall.
I thought I think I have it on my bookshelf. But you sent me your books and they were phenomenal. And I can see why somebody would read that and decide that they had an aha moment and their path maybe could get diverted or put back on course, right? To where they really, their body was leading them or their spirit was leading them. So I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. But when you're pushed against the wall, and something has to crack because you can't possibly go any further, that is the person that I like to work with the most.
So
Because at that moment, you're open.
A person who's looking for hope, they feel like there's nothing left for them. They've just, like you said, hit the wall, and they need, I don't know, help to see that there is hope, maybe that there's still beautiful quality of things out there for them.
Well, as long as we breathe, there's hope.
100%. I say that all the time. If I wake up and there's breath, I got hope for that day, right?
Well, yeah, I think we're hardwired into that there's always hope. And I think the hope lies in that promise that things are always going to change. So we can count on that in any situation.
I love it. I do count on it, by the way, in every situation. If people want to connect with you or like get your book, find your website, or book a session with you, which I highly, highly recommend. It was transformational for me, and I only had one. And I got to be really honest. It was so powerful. I was a little afraid to have a second one because it was really powerful. I wasn't expecting that. Is that normal?
I don't know if there is a normal, but I mean, a lot of people are geared towards having clients return over and over and stuff. I don't think about that. I'm glad if somebody can really run, or for myself, I mean, if I had somebody like me, I would go maybe, whenever there's an issue that I need it again. because
100%. You don't take your car and have the brakes replaced once, right? As you use them and other things happen, you go in regularly to give ourselves that beautiful maintenance we need.
yeah, or you may just, have everything that you need or the tools. I'm really more of a teacher. I like you to be able to work with yourself and to, especially some of the healing work with the energy. When I explain that to people, I like them to use it themselves and continue on their own, because that's how they can really, every healing is self-healing. So you can only do it yourself. So the more you learn about how to surpass an issue by yourself, the better you're off. But I mean, even me, if I have a problem that I can't, where I can't get out of myself and observe the whole picture, I will go to somebody that can and say, hey, I need somebody from the outside to do something here because I'm stuck. I need that push, or I need that clarity.
Sometimes I think it's really hard for us to, first of all, I totally agree that we have everything we need to make things right within ourselves. But sometimes we can't see what another person maybe can see because we have a different perspective of how it looks. Or we're not willing to look that deep because we may not like what we see, or we don't know, like, if I do that, what am I going to do, right? How am I going to get? And I do know people who hang on to pain for a reason, of a loss of a loved one, and they want to hang on to that pain because it feels like they're still close. Like, if I let go of that pain and move on to some joy in my life, that feels wrong. And so they hang on to that. And there's, again, no judgment ever, because what we have to do to get through this life. But I want you to know that there are options, right? There are options to talk to someone to move these things out of our way and be able to move forward and maybe run into something bigger or less of a problem, but at least moving forward to it, right?
Yeah, and when the student is ready, the teacher will be there. And so there again, it's trust, that things will move on and you're guided to the right person. But I'd say my practice is not based on a return client basis. I mean, I hope that people will learn and run with it.
I think that's one of your great qualities, is that you're very comforting and easy to trust, because I went in expecting nothing, right? No expectations, not sure what was going to happen, but I trusted you right away, which is, if people who know me know, that's pretty unusual because I'm always a question asker. What does this mean? Well, wait, what is this going to happen? But I didn't, I just gave into it because of that trust that I felt with you. So I think that is an amazing quality you have when you're working with people. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you or have a session with you or experience the amazingness I experienced?
Well, thank you. I have a website. It's called quantumheartfield.com. So it's quantum as in physics, the heart as, in your chest, and field as in baseball field.com. And so all the information is on there. I'm on Facebook, and not that hard to find. My last name actually is pretty easy to find. There's only my brother and my dad there, I think.
Well, we'll definitely have all of her connections, all her social media, websites, everything in the show notes. So for those of you who are listening on YouTube or listening in your car, don't worry, when you get back to your house, don't crash. You can go to the show notes and follow her anywhere.
Please don't crash.
Yes, just listen. There's no interaction with the podcast if you're driving. Thank you so much for being here. I literally have been so excited to have you on, because that experience with you was really so powerful for me and so amazing. I could not wait to share you with everyone on the podcast. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, again, thank you for having me on. It was an honor, and I just love being connected with you and your daughter, actually.
Thank you. I know I have the best kids. Like, I'm just so proud of them. But she is an old soul, I guess. She's just incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening, and we will be talking to you guys soon.